So I have no idea if it probably did not save all that stuff that I just talked about, which is really bad. But maybe it did. We'll see. But anyway, moving on. To answer your question, Casey, helium does only want 2 electrons, but helium's not going to show up on the exam. Helium doesn't form molecules, so it's not going to be there. But you are correct that helium only wants 2 electrons. And it has its 2 electrons, and so it's not going to bother trying to get any more. So what I was checking on I was trying to remember I knew there was 2 different ways that I asked questions about via CPR, and I was trying to make sure I remembered what the second way was. So the 2 methods that I used to ask questions about via CPR, the first way was I would just give a generic description. So I would say you have a molecule and it has this number of things bonded to the central atom and this number of things, or this number of lone pairs. What would be its electron geometry and or molecular geometry? So it's just giving you the values themselves. So that was one way that I asked the question. So you would be expected to write down the names for each of those. The other way that I asked questions over via CPR was I figured out how to paste pictures into the questions, and so I either hand drew myself or went on to the internet and found images of Lewis structures, and I would paste those images in and say, given this molecule shown below, what is its via CPR molecular geometry and electron geometry? And so you would have to analyze the Lewis structure to work out what the different geometries were. And so there will be questions like both of those options that you'll have to answer on the exam. Any questions about those? Yep, alright. Those should be pretty straightforward. Via CPR tends to be one of the easier topics in the class, actually. And if you remember, usually people do better on this exam than on the previous exam. Obviously, I'm not guaranteeing scores to anyone, but that tends to be the case. Alright, so then the last big topic for this exam is electronegativity and polar versus nonpolar molecules and bonds. So I do expect you to be able to identify if you have polar bonds and if you have a polar molecule. And I do ask questions over both of those on the exam. So the questions where it's just the bonds themselves, I have examples where it's just you have this atom and this atom bonded together. Is the bond polar? And so that is just a matter of you working out what the electronegativities are and if the difference between the electronegativities is great enough to give you a polar bond. Pretty straightforward. The second type of question is I give you a molecule and I describe the molecule, or I give you a picture, one or the other, and you have to tell me if the molecule is polar or not. So not whether, and actually I think you have to tell me both. You have to tell me, does this molecule have polar bonds, and is the molecule polar? You have to tell me both. So in those types of things, like I said, I will either have a picture that I have hand drawn where you can see it, or I will have some picture that I've pulled off of the internet somewhere where you can see the molecule, see how stuff is connected together, so you can make your determinations based on the flow chart here as to whether or not the molecule is polar. Okay, and then hybridization, like I said earlier, I don't think I actually put any hybridization on the exam, but you do still need to know how to do it because it is on the homework. So I think that is it. Questions? Any questions? Here's a quick and easy way to figure that out. There you go. Nope, nope, nope. It's funny, you guys can't see the results as they come in, I believe, but I can see people answering the poll as it happens. So 3 of you have not decided yet whether or not you have questions. That's all that I wanted to talk about today, going over the exam. Maybe some of you haven't seen that there's a poll up there for you to complete yet either, but I believe if there are no questions, I will go ahead and let you go. Oh, someone asked about Wednesday. I should be able to do that. It would have to be kind of similar to last time, where it would have to be not super late in the evening, but probably 8:30-ish, something like that. My kids have been especially bad about, like, I'll put them down at 7 or so, and Simon especially will, like, he'll be awake and going at like even later than that. Like he does not sleep nearly as much as the other two, and so I'll be up here, recording a video or something for the class at 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden I'll hear, cause he'll knock on the door of their bedroom, because there's a child lock on it, so they can't get out. And I hear knocking on the door, and I go down there, and he's like, "I need a toy." And you're like, "No, you don't, Simon. Go to sleep." So it would have to be not super late, but around the same time, probably 8:30 to 9, somewhere around in there. But I am not opposed to getting together on Wednesday. I would imagine it won't take too much time, especially if you've taken the practice exam at that point. I would think that you'll have a good idea of what to expect in the exam. Then it might just be questions over like formatting and things like that, because there's always issues with those types of things. Anyway, so I will plan on meeting with you guys at let's go ahead and say 8:30, and if I need to change that, I will send out an email letting you all know. But let's go ahead and say 8:30, and good luck with your studies. Good luck taking that practice exam, and I will talk to you later.